October the 4th, 2001, and we're at the 12th Armored Museum at the opening weekend. And Mr. Gagne, I appreciate you letting us come and talk to you, and I want your full name and where you were born, the date of your birth.
All right, my name is Victor Joseph Gagne, and I'm 10/1/20 is my birth date. That makes me 81 plus 4 days. I was born in Canada in a little town of Sherrington, just outside of Montreal, 30 miles west of Plattsburgh, New York. And when I was 1 year old, I came to Michigan with my parents naturally. And I lived in Michigan until I went into service.
Where your family from? Were they originally
They're from
Canadians?
Canada.
They are Canadians. Okay.
My mother was Canadian. My father was American because he was born in New Hampshire, Claremont, New Hampshire.
What did your father do?
Well, he was a farmer as a child, I suppose, and then when he went to Michigan, he worked at the Ford Motor Plant.
And did he serve in World War I or
No.
any of that? Okay.
No, I guess he was a farmer. The only thing he remembers, though, is that right after the war, he was born in 1895, and right after the war, his whole area got the Black Plague, and he lost half of his family. They used to bury him in big holes. Yeah, there's 15 in his family, and when he got sick and come out of it, half of his family had been buried. His mother and half of his family. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Well, tell me about where you were on Pearl Harbor Day.
Pearl Harbor Day, I was at 3515 Pennsylvania, and I had two of my buddies. We'd been out the night before, and we was in bed. And we were just about, Dad come in, he says, I got bad news. Every time I think about it, I have tears in my own eyes. He says, boys, we got a problem. We've been attacked, and you boys are going to have to go into service. So I said, Dad, don't worry about it. We got lots of morale. We'll go sign up tomorrow. He said, oh, I don't want to lose all you boys. Oh, yeah, I was the oldest boy in my family of four, see, and he says, so we straightened him out. But the next day, three of us went down to sign up, but they weren't organized. They weren't signing anybody up. You know, the attack was on the 7th, and the next day was Monday. So I went to all these different places that week, and they wouldn't take us. The last one, I went to the Navy. They said, well, you wore glasses. We can't take you. So I said, to hell with you guys. If you won't take me out, you're going to wait till I'm going to be drafted. So I was drafted.
When were you drafted that year?
Well, I got, let's see, I was 21 December. October, I was 21. I went into service on my 22nd birthday. I had been working for the Kroger Company for about 8 years. I was a manager and all that. You know, I was 22. I was a manager. I grew up with the company in the Detroit area.
Okay. Tell me about the day that you went to sign up and your feelings and what it was like and where that was at.
Well, I didn't go to sign up. I was called in to sign up. Well, that was a real mess. You go in this stupid place and it's cold, you know. It was like October. In a great big warehouse in Detroit. I don't remember where it's at. And you had to strip down. And all these guys walking bare ass all through this place. And they're a mess of looking guys, I'm telling you. Some were pretty filthy looking and all that. And we had to sit on benches that were cold. That's the most miserable 24 hours I ever spent. That was mean. And, you know, the only thing is, under my arms I'd sweat, even though it was cold. Imagine sitting on a cold bench, and they go up there and say, well, bend over, do this, do that, and they look at your mouth and look at everything. And one guy says, well, go ahead like that. And he's going, no, you're all right. You see, let's see your teeth. And my guy threw up all over the place. And if you believe that, I'll tell you another one.
Okay. Where did you do your basic training?
And
where was it, and when did you get there?
Well, 3 days after I was in service, I volunteered to get the hell out of there because we had been through so many shots and so much clothes and so much testing that I was in this group, and they called for a number. The guy didn't show up. They said, we need a volunteer. I said, I go. So what happened? We ended up to, it's now Fort Campbell. It was Camp Campbell then. I spent a full year there. I mean, with the boys that I went in the combat with, the whole year of training with those people. And from that year, well, then we went to Camp Barclay, spent a year there. And would you believe that both times in those places was the most miserable year they ever had? It was either cold and wet. We went to Texas, and the cattle were freezing in the fields, and that happens like every 20 years. And then when we got into combat, got in the Battle of the Bulge, and we froze there too. And to this day, you know, I've got frost tips on my ears, my nose, and my feet. You know, I had cold feet. In fact, one time I had to go to the doctors. My feet were frozen. That was the Battle of the Bulge. And I made it all. Never got shot up. I just tore up a couple of Jeeps.
Let's go back to Camp Campbell.
Okay.
Okay. Who was your sergeant, and were you?
Sergeant Cook, P.K. Cook, C-O-O-K-E, most miserable bastard you ever saw. He got me doing KP and latrine duty. I don't know how many times. He hated me for something. I don't know why.
From the beginning? Was that from the
all the way
beginning?
through, all 2 years of training. You know, I put everything right, real perfect, real clear, put everything all buttoned up there all the way through. And I come back, you know, I'd be marked for a penalty. I found one of my damn shirts was unbuttoned or something. Somebody was screwing up my doggone button, see. I didn't find out till later somebody was always sticking me for KP or something. And I kept blaming the sergeant, but I don't know if he did or not. But I told the boys in my outfit, I said, if I ever see that Cook, I'll kill that son of a gun. But, you know, that was just a joke. Because I met him in Orlando, one of the reunions, and I says, you know, I didn't have nothing to, I just didn't like you, but I wasn't going to kill you. That's it. But I got even with that son of a bitch. I was a chief of my half-track, and I got the mail that come in, and I sorted out. I stole every one of his cookies, his gloves, and his socks, so I was even with him. What goes around turns around.
So what area of training did you do? Did you go?
I was in artillery, and when I first went in there, I asked what they had marked me down as a recorder. Nobody knew what a recorder was, and they didn't know. Everybody didn't know, because we was a brand new outfit of artillery with a new type of gun on a tank. And
Tell
then
me about that too in a minute.
all right, well, what happened? This is a long story about the gun on a tank. Anyway, they trained me to do something that I didn't know. But after I did go through the training, I got to be an expert at horizontal and vertical firing. I could locate a target, put it on a map, tell the gun how far, and locate it in all directions. So I was very good. I did that most of the 2 years. Well, we only had 69 or 70 days of combat. All during that time, which I also had assistants, I did it all that time because I was sharp. Now, about the gun, in Africa at that time, there's a lieutenant. They got tired of pushing that 105 caliber howitzer around. It was a murderous thing. You had about 10 people moving that thing around in mud and sand, and it was miserable. So he mounted it on a half-track. And it was such a great idea that our people mounted one on a half-track, only one. We had one to play with. But they designed, Washington come up with a plan. They had a whole bunch of Grant tanks. They cut them down, redid them, and put a howitzer on it. And that's what we had. Every one of our battalions had 6 of these, what we called M7s. It's a 105 howitzer on an old redesigned Grant tank. And that's what we went all through combat with. And we were trained that as I was running the aiming circle, which is the first guy to lay it out, lay the gun, lays the gun, and he lays the others, and he shoots. You had to lay out and shoot one gun in 1 minute from the time you got a fire mission. That means you're coming down the road, and all at once you get fire mission, fire mission. Right away, the guy tells you coordinates of a target. Well, then you look at your map, you go there, and you lay out, go out, lay the gun out, and get it all done. Fire one round. That's how Patton knew our outfit could do anything better than anybody. Next question.
Okay, okay. So you were trained on that at Campbell.
Well, for 2 years, both camps, the Camp Campbell and Barclay.
Okay. So you were in the group that when they reorganized
Well,
and came here.
I don't know. I was one of the first. I wasn't in the cadre, but I was in the first group that was trained by the cadre.
Tell me about the Tennessee maneuvers.
Oh, those are miserable. They're, water and rain and dirt and crap and bugs, and I got familiar with those red bugs. What do you call them?
Chiggers?
Oh, chigger's the most miserable thing there is. And the only way we'd handle it then, with a cigarette, a light cigarette, I smoke cigars, and you just burn it. I mean, that hurts, but it gets rid of it. Otherwise, you have to dig it out with a knife. And those are mean. We got them in Florida, too, but they're not as mean as they are in Tennessee. Next question.
Tell me, did that prepare you for Germany, that experience?
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I mean, we had wet weather, mud, hills. You had to locate yourself because Tennessee, Kentucky is the most miserable terrain there is. Where are you going to go? Yeah, you gotta look at an aerial map, and a little road here, a little road there, and a tree here. And the same thing with, you go to Texas, then you had flat terrain you had to find your way around. So you had to use your compass. But the good thing in combat, we learned to use the church spires. All these towns had a church. And that old spire was way up there. You could shoot that for a target. I mean, use that for your base of operation. Next question.
Okay, tell me about your experience at Camp Barclay. And when you got here.
You don't really want to know that.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to have the love story or the other end?
Well, let's do the love story can be an aside. Tell me about the camp first.
Well, it was a windy, dusty, miserable area. I mean, we was out in the field for days and months, and you'd come in, we had an old tar paper shack that was full of dust, and you didn't know which was worse, being out in the field or inside. And we'd be out there in the field, and when you go through all that crap, you had to come in and wash everything down. And if it rained or was whatever, you had a miserable bunch of equipment to clean up and all that. It was really, if you're used to being clean, and you're out there for days, the only thing you did regularly, you wash your face, shaved, and brush your teeth, and change your socks. Now the love angle.
Okay.
I fell in love with a girl, and she loved me right from here. I'm not going to say her name. And I was visiting her. We had lunch at her place a few times, and she loved me, and I loved her, and I knew I was going to go leave, and she wanted, one night she had her dad's car, and she said, let's go and get married. And I said, well, honey, I'm not going to leave you like that. I says, I'll be gone. I don't know if I'll come back. I'm not going to go through this bit. So I says, we'll do it later. So all through combat, I got nice letters from her. I loved her and all that. And she even went to visit my folks in Michigan. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, she did stay there a few weeks and enjoyed my family. But when I did get back, I just couldn't leave Michigan. I grew up there. How can I leave my friends, my relatives, my mother and dad, and my brothers, and go to Texas? I met my wife the second day after I come out of service, and I married her about a year and a half later. So we had children, and she died about in '83, and we had 38 years of a wonderful married life.
What was her name?
My wife's name was Josephine. I never at one time ever called her Josephine. I always called her honey. I could never call anybody Josephine. Why? A metal block. The red light's still on.
Yeah, it's still going.
Are you interested now?
Yeah.
And you know, I figured if that gal is still around, she'd probably be 75. And her dad was in real estate. And I know her name and all that, and I don't want to discuss that. And I was very careful. I signed the papers here because maybe there's somebody in the area who would be out there. But I never had sex with her, so we left clean.
Tell me about your hutments. Tell me about if you were to close your eyes, describe that tar paper place out at.
Oh my God! You know, it's a building like about this size here, and the windows. You know, dust would come through the sides of the windows, and the doors didn't really fit tight. And you had about 20 people in these, and we had to take all our instruments inside to clean them and take the dust out. And you know, we went on maneuvers one time, just away from the shack, and we had to chew tobacco. And you know, we didn't chew tobacco back in them days, just to keep the dust out of our mouths. Just chew tobacco because the dust was so bad. And if you wore a mask, you had dust masks too, and then you couldn't breathe. That was miserable.
Tell me what you trained on here, equipment that you trained on here at camp at Barclay.
Well, it was, I was trained to use the aiming circle to direct the guns on the 6 tanks, of which, to do this, we had to use, I don't know if you guys ever had those things. I don't think you got an aiming circle, or we had slide rules that were that long. And you have for different charges. Now, if you had a 2 charge, 3, 4, 5, 6 charge, depending how far you're going to shoot this thing, you had to pull these, slip them around like that. I have never seen any of these things. There's a big leather thing about that big, that long. And we had to carry them everywhere as we went. And as long as the miserable weather was bad, cold, wet, we still had to use it and maps that you had to write on. And you know, now I don't care how cold it was, you had to use a pencil to fill these things in. Man, your fingertips froze up. That's combat. Next question.
Were you surprised when you got into combat?
Well, we knew it was coming into that. You know, we landed in Southampton, England it was on my birthday. Although the book says the 2nd of October, but I know I was out on the 1st. Well, naturally, it takes 2-3 days for a whole outfit to land. But I was there, and they placed us in a hangar with miserable cold. You know, that was October. Damp in England. So then we got on buses and trucks and cars, railroad cars, and they were bad, you know. The narrow gauge in England, and it hits every bump, 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 bump. So anyway, we finally get to Salisbury Plains, and we had tents, and we couldn't, there was no coal, there was no oil, there was nothing. So one night the guy said, let's go out, there's a whole bunch of trees out there, let's go cut a tree down. Well, they did. And that was called the Queen's trees or whatever. Man, they were going to catch a guy to cut the tree down and hang him. You know, we were supposed to touch the Queen's trees. Well, hey, you're cold, you're going to cut a tree down. So anyway, that's one incident there. And the other good incident was they went to unload a bunch of stuff, and we got some good bread and good marmalade we stole. That was good, man, that was good. But they gave us goat blankets with itch like hell, and then we had mutton. And if you can chew mutton, you're lucky you can do that. So then from there, then we went to right across from Le Havre. Where the hell did we leave from there? We left, I can't remember the town in England we left to go to Le Havre. That was 20 miles. And it took about 2-3 days because it's so rough. and our tanks and everything was moving all over the ship, you know. We had to tie them up and down. A lot of people got sick, you know, and that's only 20 miles across the straits. So anyway, we finally get over there, get unloaded and all that. We go to Le Havre. We spread out, and we went to our town. Our group was listed around Longville, and I could speak French. I got interested in a nice young French lady, and we had a great time. And I got to drink Calvados. That is the most miserable liquor you could ever get. Anyway, at that time it was bad because it had been overnight made, and you know we had to have something to drink, so we drink this stuff. And if you take a bottle of this and turn it like this, it looks like snot running back and forth. And we was drinking that. Oh, it gets sicker than hell. Anyway, this little young girl was very, very nice. She was, I don't know, about 18 or 19, and she said she was a school teacher. And I, with my French, because I could speak French, and we got along real well. And from then on, then we went into combat.
Tell me, you were in C Company.
Right.
Tell me about
C Battery.
C Battery. Tell me about the C Battery, the people that you started with, camaraderie, sort of the
The
makeup.
very wonderful group, the 110 people per battery. I knew them all, and they're all wonderful people. We had a couple of asshole corporals, but outside that, they're all good. Well, we lived and breathed together for 2 solid years. And one incident where we were ready to go into combat, from the States across, and we had one old guy. And they asked him, well, I think at that time he was 45. And they said, Joe, his name was Joe Ailes. And he's not going to be here this time. He should have been, but he couldn't make it. And we asked him, well, Captain Mulder was our commander, and he said, Joe Ailes, you don't have to go. But he says, I trained with these people 2 years. I'll stay with them. That's the good part. Then I had a friend of mine that he and I was in the same battery, and we wore the same size clothes. I think I was 34, 28 or something like that. He and I we'd switch clothes all the time. And he was a gambler. And every time he'd run out of money, he'd come over to me, and I'd loan him money. But every time he won, he hurried and stamped it, sent it home. But we had, and then right after, when the war was over, one of my boys in my group, the war was over. We was going into a bivouac area. He come to me and he was all yellow, and I said, Groven, what's the matter with you? You got yellow jaundice. He says, I don't know. I'm sick. Well, I saw him about 4 or 5 years later. He had got home a month later. He got home before anybody ever did. He went to Paris, got all his shots, got taken care of, and they sent him home. I said, you lucky guy. I wish I'd have had yellow jaundice. But then I had other problems there. We had, I know we had problems. We had a lot of fun and all that, but we'd kid a lot of guys, We had some guys a little bit fat, and we screw up their beds, things like that. Now, do you want to hear some of the shit that happened in combat and all that? Okay. Well, what happened? We was going through pretty good one time, and we had a little bit of lack space. I happened to go by a museum, and I told my officer, I said, I need some canvas because it's been wet and cold, and with canvas we can lay it on the ground and sleep on that and cover ourselves up. Go ahead, Sergeant, go ahead. So I brought my boys with me. We went over there. Boy, I got me one of them plume caps, I picked up a sword and a whole bunch of stuff, And this is all museum stuff, So I don't know what happened to the plume cap, but I did send the sword to my brother. He still got the sword, so that might be valuable someday. But anyway, another area, we went to this place looking for food. We'd always look for eggs and chicken. And we wrapped up into a couple of gals. And there was 3 gals, and there was 3 of us. So we said, well, get the food together. We'll go get some more stuff and bring it in. We start cooking all this. And we found some liquor, and we got all this goddamn brandy and schnapps, and this was in Germany. My first sergeant come on. Well, first I told my buddy, you stand my guard. That was Groven. I said, you go stand my guard because I'm having too much fun. He said, okay. So he went. They sent him back. He said, Gagne's got to stand his own guard. I said, I can't hey, I'm having too much fun. There's where Cook come in, the first sergeant. He put his hand on his gun. He said, Gagne, you're going to stand guard. I couldn't say no, so I got a towel, wrapped it around the liquor, wrapped it up. I was going to take it with me. And he says, the liquor stays here. Well, you know, the next day they court-martialed me in the field. I had to dig a hole. And there was 3 of us digging a hole, 4 by 4. And I said, well, how far do we have to go? And he says, you see those trees out there? When you get there, you can stop. Well, that morning, we'd only been digging about an hour or so. A plane went by to strafe us. We all left. That was the end of the penalty. That's the way a court-martial is.
The court-martial was just
punishment? Yeah, that's punishment. Well,
and why?
I lost my stripes, too. But then I got my stripes back. We was in combat, and one of our ammo trucks got lost.
Where was
this? Is in France.
Okay.
And Flanagan was our executive officer, and he says, Sarge, you're French. You know how to talk French. Would you go out and look for? I says, yeah, I'll tell you, I'll go. But I got to get my stripes back. He says, don't worry about that. You go find that ammo truck. So I went up and down the rows. I'm talking to the Frenchmen, you know, and all that. And he said, okay. Found the ammo truck, brought it back. So I got my stripes back.
Tell me when you became a sergeant the first time.
I don't remember. I don't remember. Went from private to corporal and then sergeant. I don't know. I have to look up my record somewhere.
Was it, do you have any idea before or after Hurlesheim?
Oh, it was before Hurlesheim. Oh, yeah. There's another bad memory at Hurlesheim. Glad you mentioned it. Now, we have a fellow now, a general, a 2-star general. His name is Miggs. I remember the night his father's head was shot off. They're going in Hildesheim, you know, there's a railroad area, and there's a mound, or whatever you want to call it. And that morning it had started to get cold, and there's a little frost on the ground, a little bit hard and soft. Well, these techs tried to get over that, and they got hung up. And his head was above the hatch. And he was directing orders and everything. And I was listening to the radio. And he got his head shot off, and the head fell in the tank. That was Colonel Miggs. Always remember that. Always have tears in my eyes when I hear it. After all those years, how the hell can you still cry over something like that?
It was a tough time. It was a tough time.
On, let's go on.
Were you in the tanks?
No, I was in a half-track. Because of a half-track and all our equipment, we had to open up the side and get our drafty equipment and the aiming circle and all. That's why I got to find out if you guys have an aiming circle. And those slipsticks, we call them slipsticks, which is really slide rules. How much more we got to go?
I've got some.
I've been crying too many times.
No, that's okay. I've had people just break down in sobs, so we're
Okay.
okay if you don't mind it. No, because this is life. This is the way it was.
I know, but how can you look back all those years and say he still, still brings back memories? I seen my buddies get killed too. I had a funny incident, which is really fun, not funny. This is one of those places in France with the trees on both sides of the road, what do they call them things? Anyway, we were going to lay it off for a couple of days, and I said, well, I dug a foxhole along the road there with a little dirt coming up this way. And during the shelling and all that, I get so doggone much dirt in my neck, I said, I ain't going to be in that foxhole. I'll go someplace else. Well, one of my buddies used it, and he got shot up. He had his buttock shot off. His name was Whiting. So I could always say, I was a lucky son of God. I let him have it.
Did he survive?
Yeah, he survived. He just died a few years ago. I always wanted to see his wife, and I don't know what to tell her. I said, I don't remember his first name. Well, we had never used first names in the service. Always used the last name.
Tell me about the first day of action that you saw. What were your feelings as you went into?
Well, the funny thing, we were just coming out of Longville. It wasn't too far out of there, and we heard a lot of bombs bursting in air, and man, I was scared as hell. The shrapnel. See, their bombs somehow that they weren't able to accurately explode them at this particular area or time. And when they go up in the air so long, then they blow up. And this stuff would come down on us, rain like pieces of metal. And we didn't know what the hell it was, We'd go huddle up there and wear it, like, pop, 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 pop. And, we're just traveling. Now, if we could fight our way, we wouldn't care. We'd open the guns and shoot. But we're just traveling, and this stuff is coming on us. That's the first recollection I remember that. The other times was when a German 88 opens up on you. That's how I lost all my hair. The guy opens up this barn door, and this doggone gun starts shooting at us. There's nothing more weird. This 88 is the most powerful gun they had in the world at that time. It would explode here. You could hear the whine. Then you could hear where it was fired from. Now, if you don't think that's weird, explosion, follow through, and where it's fired from. The sound took that long to get to you. It was so fast. And this was called a rifle. It wasn't a cannon. It wasn't a howitzer. It fired exactly like that. Whatever they aimed at, it would hit. The shell was that high, and the projectile was only that big.
Was it mounted on a tank or something?
No, they didn't have. Well, they might have had some on tanks, but these were field with wheels on. Oh, every time they shot at you, buddy, you ducked. You get under the tank. That thing could go through any. We had one of them that went through our barrel sideways. The barrel of our howitzer had fired right through it, and looking through the barrel, you could hardly see where it went through. That's how powerful that thing was. It would go right through our tanks. And then we come out from the 75. We went to a 90 millimeter on our tanks. Then we could fight a Tiger tank and fight the doggone 88s. Them Germans were pretty sharp. You got to remember, though, they made binoculars, they made Zeiss instruments, they made a lot of things. And all their instrumentation was run on millimeters. And ours was on, see, their stuff was on millimeters, ours was on degrees. Now, the funny part, we learned all this, how I could run this gun sections and run them, where to shoot, how to shoot, where to shoot, in yards and feet. Well, we get over there, it was in millimeters and kilometers. So I had a little triangle with all marked in yards, and all the maps that we picked up from the Germans was very, very accurate. They're in kilometers. So we had to convert real quick, find out what the hell we're doing here. So off the map, we made our own little sticks to judge it by. And I always remembered, it's 8 to 5 and 5 to 8. There's 8 kilometers to 5 miles. And a millimeter is an angle subtended by a meter at 1,000 meters. Got that? In other words, you start here, 1,000 meters, and you put a meter, which is like 39 inches. That is the angle. Got that? See, our degrees are 360 degrees per circle.
I want you to go through, if they called and gave you an order, okay, you've got this fire here, let's say,
Yeah,
in
where?
town. Okay, and they tell you to start. I want you to describe from the time you get the message until you tell them to shoot.
Okay.
And was it radio or how you communicated all this?
I yelled. What the heck? See, you got a fire mission over our radio, because they'd come through the radio. Fire mission, sea battery, so-and-so coordinates. I heard you get my map out. I find out, okay. I find out where I'm at. All right, now I know where I'm at, and I know where this target is at, okay? Then I got to get my guns pointed in that direction. So then I bring my aiming circle out, find out where north is, subtract or add which way I am azimuth from whatchamacall, and then plus or minus, then I'd say, okay, this gun has got to go so many degrees that way to that target. And then knowing the distance, then I had to know how much angle, because the howitzer shoots this way. And I had to, I had to do that within a minute. But I didn't have to do it all the time, It all depended what kind of target we had. If we were being fired at, well, we better hurry and do it. We had a group of SS people on bicycles one time, and we took our time because we knew they're going down this road, and we would meet them right on. We would be able to get that where the real crossroads come in. So I figured out how the hell we got to get them bastards when they hit that spot. So we had already, what we do is zero a gun in. So we know how much powder, sometimes you took powder out, sometimes we put some in. And if the gun was hot, it would fire further. We'd find exactly where that would run. And then, boy, we let them babies, when we got to, there was not even a bicycle left. So we did shoot up towns and people and tanks and so forth, but we got that bunch of bicycles. We got a railroad car, an engine a couple of times. We used to mark them up, a railroad engine, Nazi bicyclers, and we had a guy that used to pull a funny one on us. He's an old German. See, I know he's old enough. From there, he looked old. We was sitting there, and every day we knew he'd come out at a certain time and go by this tree and eat. And we said, we're going to get that son of a bitch. So we had practiced already. We knew exactly what our gun would do and use one round. And we'd make bets. Can we get him the first time or not? we laid that baby. He had no lunch bucket. We got through with him. That was one of the funny ones.
Did you, on the half tracks, was there one of you for each half track, or were you controlling several guns?
I was controlling 6 guns from that one half track, because that was the only one that had the radio. And if we stayed in an area with our 6 guns around us, we was in the middle, the guns were around us. That way they could hear me. Now, if it was at night that we had to be there any length of time, because we never knew how long it'd be in an area, then we stretch our telephones. And they talk to each other all the time, make sure they're all awake. Now, we did have no protection from snipers or infantrymen, because our radios were always on, the motors were always running, but we did have a couple of squads of infantry and small tanks on the outside perimeter to protect us. Because, hey, how the hell could we, everything had to be running. We couldn't hear nothing. The good thing about the equipment running, though, is we could warm up our food supply. You have little ration cans. We punch a hole in it and put it on top of the half track, and there's a ½ inch of steel there. That was the warmest spot you could find. I used to lay on that thing like this, put my blanket on there, and I'd burn my ass. Then I'd roll over, burn the other side. I'd burn the other side. I mean, that's the only place that was comfortable.
Was there a specific armored infantry battalion that was with y'all, that traveled with you?
Well, they told us when we first started our training, they said all the fire missions would come from headquarters. But we're just training you just in case. Well, we get into combat, it was all individual. We never had any of them headquarters. We was ahead of everybody. Our office was moving all over the place because the order from Patton was bypass. Well, we just threw it around in the town, and if they didn't give us a white sheet, well, we set fire to it. And if they give us a white sheet, well, the infantry would move in, we'd go around and go to the next town. We'd go to a lot of towns. In fact, I made a list of all the towns I was in, but I can't find it. I mean, I did it on real fine paper, and I put every damn town I was in, and I can't find that stupid thing. I learned to speak German though. It, you don't hear about occupation.
Yeah. So you were there in occupation.
Oh yeah.
Okay, before I get to occupation, tell me the day.
Armistice.
No, the day. No, the day that stands out in your mind of your war experience.
God, I don't know. Well, I know one incident. It's really not that. It don't stand out. But our executive officer was a boozer, and he used to bring in. He used to bring. The officers would get their rations, and he used to have Cutty Sark and black and white scotch. And when things got quiet, he'd drink about half of it, and he'd set aside, Gagne, you could drink the rest. And we were young fellas, and I didn't know how to drink whiskey or anything. I didn't like scotch. And I got through. I was drinking that black and white and Cutty Sark like nothing. I mean, I enjoyed it. And one night, of course, he was drunker than hell. He was on this fart sack. And we'd be shelled all around us. And all my gun crews would complain. He says, "Hey, Sarge, the doggone shell's getting awful close." And I says, "Hey, he's sleeping. If it takes me an hour to wake him up, I can't wake him up. Even when he was sober, he wouldn't wake up." So I finally shook him up, and he says, "What's up, Saw Gagne?" I says, "God damn, the shells are all around. We're in bad shape." I said, "We got to move." He says, "Anybody get hurt?" I said, "No, we ain't been hit." He said, "Well, go back. Forget it." I was all right.
How do you deal with things like that?
That's part of service. They caught him one time. He got ahead of everybody in his own half-track. I don't know if it was a half-track or a tank. He took off way ahead of everybody. In fact, he got orders from Patton to get back the hell out of there. He was 10 miles ahead of everybody. Things were clear. He'd keep going. And he was way behind the lines, and much of this probably.
I have, when I've talked to the men through the years, I've noticed there was a lot of drinking and stuff.
Now, you want to hear about Augsburg?
Yes.
We were coming down this mountain trail, and Glover was our Piper pilot, recon. He's here now. And he says, there's something funny going down there. He said, them Germans, they're laying around, their hats are off, and they look like they're drunk. And he got closer. He says, "Yeah, they are drunk." He says, "They're all laying around." And he says, "There's something funny down there." So through the radio, we hear, there's somebody's got a cave, and people are coming. Americans are not coming out of there with, with booze. So coming down this trail, I says, well, of course, I'm one of them guys that gets out. I don't hang around too long. I says, "Fellas, I'll go down the hill and find out what's going on, and when I'll find to catch up with you guys." So what happened? I go down there, I find a great big cave. I walk in there. I have never seen anything in my life, so it was a paradise for a drunk. Cases and cases of cognac, every kind of stuff you could think of, schnapps, rum, cognac, and they had Hennessy and Martell's, the finest, 3-4 star stuff. So I went in and grabbed the case, all I could carry, it's all. And the drunks were coming out of there with cases and cases. One guy had a cart on a wheel, he was loading it up, bringing it out. So anyway, when my half-track got by, I threw my stuff in there, and I said, "Go on in there and get some more, and we'll come and get you later." Well, we ended up throwing the transit away, the BC scope, the chains on the half-track. We threw everything out, filled it up with booze. And boy, we'd go on guard drinking brandy or cognac and washing it down with champagne. And did you ever take that champagne, that real good stuff, the blue stuff, you go like this over your head and the bubbles will come all over your face.
Why were you willing to give up the equipment on your half track for booze?
Good reason. I'd rather drink. We weren't using those guns. We were, well, we didn't have time to use a BC scope. We was traveling and shooting as we went, and I didn't need the transit.
What's a transit?
Well, a transit is a more precise equipment, than the aiming circle. It's for long distance, for miles. And I wish I had kept them because I became a surveyor later in life, and I had to buy instruments. But I'll tell you, it was fun. We had people drinking all over the place, and during the guard, man, you could hear them guys. They'd drink their brandy and then wash it down with. You could hear the pop, pop, pop all over the air. They're drinking that stuff. We had quite a time.
Was the reason that was done was because of the youth, or was there a reason was that an escapism, or what?
I don't know what it was. Well, at that time, I was only 23 or 24. And, boredom. And, you think you're going to be killed every day. So you take the advantage. I got another story. I got scabies one time. I was in Strasbourg, and we had a couple of days rest. And I picked up a girl, and went to stay with her overnight. And this was during combat too. And during that time, I got to itching. And I don't know if you know what scabies are, but I'll explain it later. So I'm itching like hell. I'm in combat, and standing guard and doing this and doing that. And colder than hell, and I go stand by the ash can with wood in it, and I itch like hell. And I put that bug juice in all my doggone equipment. I'm still itching. So finally, I couldn't take it no more. I went to the medic, and I said, "What's wrong with me?" He said, "Oh, you got scabies." So he gave me some sulfur ointment. It's a yellow stuff you put all over your body. So you use it 3 days, it'll clear up. He was right. I mean, what you do, you get this little tiny bug. It's like a mite that lives in dirt. And these people had a tick, a tick blanket, or what you want to call it, that hadn't been washed in 3-4 years. And I had fooled with this girl, and I got scabies. Now, whole loads of ships, of troops, were held up for a couple of weeks at the docks, quarantined because they all had scabies. And I've only
in Europe or here?
In Europe, and I only heard about that maybe once in all my years that they mentioned it. Nobody ever mentioned scabies. Well, who wants to mention that you got dirty bugs or something? Any other stories?
I want to know. I want to know. Did you go through the war with most of your unit intact?
Well, we lost about, I don't know. I never know what the statistics were. My group, we only lost 2 guys out of my group. We got to England, find out they were gays, so we threw them out. But I had 4 other guys in my group that stayed with me, and they went through all through combat.
Tell me their names. You remember their names?
Yeah, there was Paul Groven. There's Don Emery, Joe Pinchotti, Toller, he was the half-track driver, and our first sergeant, the cook. Well, that was his half-track.
Tell me about Herleshon.
That was bad. I don't know. Everybody got shot up.
Did you go into the city, or were you out?
I don't remember what we did there. All I know is the shit was flying every which way. But I remember the Battle of the Bulge Hill.
Okay.
Now that was, the word came through from headquarters, boy, we got it made now. We're going to relax here for a week. They said, put up your pup tests together. We had never put them together because that takes too much time. So we had 2 pup tests together. We dug a little holes and put straw in that thing and fixed it up real nice. And I said, boy, I got it made. I picked up a German, what do you carry the sick people in?
Oh.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, it was about, that far off the ground. I brought that in, set it in bed. I had a good hole to sleep in because it's above ground. And man, about, I don't know what time it was. I was resting, maybe about, I know it was real dark. And all at once we got, the flares up the sky. Man, I get out there and what's going on? And we got the orders, march orders. We were being surrounded. What the hell's going on? What kind of crap you guys giving us? I had my boots off, First time I took my boots off, we were going to rest. And shit hit the fan. We were surrounded on 3 sides. Man, the word came out, if you got anything that's German, burn it, get rid of it. Anything at all, handkerchiefs, watches, pens, burn it. So I had to get my, what do you call that stupid? The medics carry that to carry your body in. Anyway, we threw that, burned everything. And boy, I'm telling you, we was on the shit from then on. Man, we fired guns day and night. In fact, we fired so many rounds that I got to find out how many rounds I got left, And I forget who I had. Most of my guys were gone somewhere, so I don't know where. And the only guy I had left was Toller, the half-track driver. And he couldn't read or write, see. So how the hell is he going to tell me how many rounds I got left? But I knew this guy was smart enough to figure something out. And I says, Toller, I need to know what kind of rounds we got out there. And he'd come back, he had a piece of paper. He had drawn every damn one of them. And with all the marks, I knew exactly what they were. Man, this guy was a bull. I mean, he had arms like that. He could go through a field in Kentucky and pick out some tobacco and bust it up, put it in his mouth and chew tobacco all day. He went through combat. He got home all right. He used to dig foxholes for me. He liked me. I couldn't dig them holes. Man, I was rocky, and he'd get that bang it. No problem, Gagne, I'll help. Well, I helped him out a few times, A couple of times he got drunk on a half-track, and first sergeant tell him, private, told her, get out of there, you ain't going to drive this. He says, all right, it's mine, and I'm going to take care of it, I'll drive it. So the first sergeant comes to me, he says, you better get him out of there, I'll have to punish him. I said, come on, Frank, get in the back, I'll drive. So I helped him out. But he could drink, oh God, he could. So I drove that thing one time, and we hit a rock. And you never want to put your thumb in the spokes of a steering wheel, because when that thing rolls all the way over, it has a terrific spring. Man, it got my thumb like that, and I was like that for a week. It's just like a Boilermaker. Did you ever see a Boilermaker, a carpenter order beer at a bar? A carpenter? He goes, 4 beers. Don't fall asleep.
Okay.
How much more time we got here?
Well, you've got lots of stories. How much time do you have on that tape? 6 minutes.
Oh my God, what are we going to do now?
Hey, we're going to keep on going. I got another tape.
Keep going.
Yeah, we're going to keep going.
As long as I can remember.
Well, I want you to describe your half-track. I want you to,
okay.
Draw me a picture with your voice of what the half-track looks like.
Well, it's like an enlarged Fleetwood Cadillac. It's got the 2 big heavy-duty tires in the front, and it's the reason it's called a half-track. Instead of the track going all the way from front to rear, it's only on the rear, and it's like half-inch steel all the way around. Everything you sit on is steel. I mean, in the middle of winter, your piles really get you. So it's really cold all over. But we do have canvas top to put on in the winter for the rain and the snow and protect. You always protect the equipment. It's not protect the man. That was our half-track. And then when they called in all the college kids, just about what we're ready to go over, we got the college kids. They closed down the colleges. I got Groven, and Groven was one of those college boys, and so was Emery. Don Emery was a college boy. So we got him in plus the 2 gays. And we called our half-track the quiz kids. the quiz kids. And I lost those two gays in England. They were real nice boys. What can I say? I didn't know them from Adam. They were from Louisiana. They were gay.
Tell me about your these were ASTP guys that came in. What was it
I
like?
think those were the guys.
Yeah, tell me, what were they like when they came in? I mean, they had been
Oh,
to college.
they couldn't believe it. They said, "How we can't do this? We don't know how to run, walk, carry guns." We said, "We've been in college for the last 6 or 9 months," and but they learned fast. They were very, very good kids. Very well. Come back later. Interview time.
Yes. This is Charlie. Yes, John. Okay.
As you go, yeah, I can remember things.
Yeah, that's why.
See, my memory is good, but if you ask me what I ate yesterday, I can't tell you. CRS, can't remember you know what.
Okay.
Is it back on again?
Yes.
Okay.
Back on. So we were talking about the ASTP boys, and they couldn't do anything. And tell me what you did.
Well, first you get a gun, and they say, "Well, we don't even know how to clean it." Well, I said, "Well, where we're going, you've got enough time." But you know, I trained with a submachine gun all 2 years. I finally get over there. They took it away from me and gave me a carbine, and that the M1 carbine is a little tiny gun. They couldn't hit a barn if you wanted to, and it was so light. You know, when you went like this once in a while, it'd fire around. You know, but I never had to fire maybe 2 or 3 times at somebody myself because all the time was using our howitzers. Oh, one night I had an interesting night. This is in France. And the boys came to me and called me and says, "There's something moving out in the field. We don't know what it is." Okay, it was dark as hell, you know. We don't want to shoot no flares. And they said, "Well, Gagne, you know how to talk French. Go over there." So I go out there and I'm yelling, you know, "Who is this? Tell us your name. What are you doing? Come on out here. Put your hands up. Do something." And I said, "Okay, fire." So we fired everything out there. And the damn thing was still dripping. I couldn't figure out what it was. We had shoot up some horses. And they're standing and bleeding. I mean, the blood was just pouring out of them. But we didn't know who the hell it was. Scared.
That's the way it was.
One time they brought me a prisoner. And we never used to take prisoners, you know. Well, we'd let the FPs take them. But they brought this guy to me. A little chubby guy, you know, heavy overcoat. He didn't even have a gun. And they said, "Well, you got to take care of him. We don't know where to send him." I said, "Hey, I can't take care of him. I got things to do." I don't know what to tell you what I did with him. I just told him, "Get the hell out of here." Occupation. You like to hear about occupation.
Yes. Yes.
Well, when we get the word, we got out, the war was over for that. Well, at the final days of the war, we was down in the Bavarian Alps. And it was towards the Bremer Pass, down the northern part of Italy. It was kind of cold and all. Anyway, we found a German division. And they said they want to surrender as a unit. All right? Our headquarters said, "You can release them to I think it was the French 1st Division or whatever. I forget what his name was. We had to let him take over. We didn't like this, but this is part of politics, which is all right. So the only thing I saw about this whole thing, the whole German division got together, cleaned all the stuff, put all the guns, locked them up real nice and everything, and it was a military surrender. And that's the most beautiful thing you ever saw. All clean and polished, all the equipment, all the guns stacked up real nice, and the French general accepted their surrender. It was real nice. Then after the war was over and all that, then our commander was Jack Mulder, Captain Mulder. He come up to us, he said, "I got us a job. I know you guys don't want to sit around and all that." He says, "We're going to drive trucks, drive people all around." I said, "What the hell kind of an outfit is that?" He said, "You're better off to do that than to go start guard duty all over." So we got a whole bunch of trucks. And we took prisoners to different jails. And we took GIs lucky to ship them out. And we'd always get certain trips, like we'd go to Paris, we'd go to different areas. Well, we enjoyed this, because they give us 5 days to go to Paris and back, and we could go to Paris in a day and come back in a day, so we had 3 days to kill. So anyway, we would stack these prisoners up in our 4x4s, and I think you could probably fit, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 people in there. Well, if we had 5 more, you know what we'd do? We'd start that son of a bitch and go 30 miles an hour and put the brakes on, and we could put 4 more in there. Some had their heads cracked too, but we got them in there. And you know how we drove?
You're not teasing me?
No way. I mean, we drove, and we never stopped. While I'm driving, I'm going to switch with my partners. I'd roll over, and he'd come in and drive. We never wasted any time. Don, occupation.
Hey, no, wait. We're going to change the tapes.
Well, the occupation, right after that, we was doing all the driving and so forth and so on. And then when that was done, they broke us up. We went to different units throughout because this is occupation and you weren't supposed to fraternize and so forth and so on. But I landed in a little town of Yettingen. It was just outside of Munich. And I got friendly with some of the girls there, and I used to go back often, I used to wonder now if there's some kids that's over 50 years old, they have crooked noses and wear glasses. In fact, if I almost stayed in a little town of Lish, because I loved this girl so much, I was going to stay and sign up for another 4 years. But then I loved my Michigan too much, I just couldn't stay. But the occupation was about, I don't know, I forget how long, maybe 6 months? When was the war over?
40.
The month.
May.
So then we had that. I must have had 6 months then.
6 months later.
Because I made rounds all over. I mean, I went back to places where I had lived. And, we could stay more than a month in any certain town. And we left them towns. Them girls came out crying. I'll tell you one particular one. You ready for this? I took over this town of, I think it was Allen. I was on recon, the war was over and all that. They said, well, Vic, you're on recon. Go find us some houses in this town. We're going to come bring our troops in there. Maybe 50, 60 people. So I go in there, and I said, go find a nice house. I said, raus mit die, I can speak German, and I get the hell out, get the people out of there. So they did. So about 2, 3 days later, this lady come back, and she says, we got no place to live. Then she's a lady about, I don't know, maybe 50 or something like that. And I says, well, we're not supposed to fraternize with you. She says, well, I'll come in and I'll clean up for you and I'll wash your uniforms. So we let her move in. And she cleaned the house for us. We brought food. She'd do our cooking for us. We bought flour and sugar and eggs that she made, and she ate with us, She enjoyed it. She washed her clothes. We had it really made, just like your mother taking care of you. And, I was only 24 or 25 then. So a couple of days later, she says, can I bring my daughter in? I said, well, we got a lot of room. She had a big room upstairs. That was her room, and we all had our own room. And I said, well, why not? So she brought her daughter. She's about 18. And we drink and they'd go upstairs to bed. And the next day, she said, I'd like to bring my other daughter. She's 15 or 16. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this. Anyway, she brought her over. And one night we had a nice party. We had a lot of wine, a lot of food. And going upstairs, she says, Vic, I don't know, Victor, they call me. That was in German, She says, you could come upstairs with us. And then I tell my buddy, Don Emery, and he was the college kid, straight and narrow, He's about 4 years younger than me. I said, what do we do? He said, I don't know either. I said, well, let's go. I said, we can't go wrong. They're only women. So we go upstairs there, and the mother puts me to bed with her oldest daughter, and she brings Emery with a 15 or 16-year-old girl in her bed, and Emery says, hey, Sarge, what are we going to do? I said, well, they're women. They can't kill us, and if they got us in bed, I said, I'll tell you what you do. I'm going to screw my girl, and when that old lady starts to snore, you can screw the little one. And we went through that for a week. To this day, I can't believe it. But you got to remember this. In wartime, there's certain things you have to do to protect your family and your life. See, she was nice to me. I was nice to her.
Tell me what you learned about yourself in the war.
Well, I had been working for 8 years before I went into service. I had worked hard. I worked at Kroger's. I worked my way up from a packer up to a manager. And to me, being in service was like a vacation. Because I used to work like 8 hours a day during the week and maybe 10 or 12 hours on Saturday. Worked my ass off. I went into service, I only weighed 130 pounds. 6 months after I'm in there, I weighed 155. I'm getting 3 meals a day, and I didn't consider that work. I mean, that was the life of Riley. The only thing I hated is going out picking butts or standing in train duty or peeling potatoes. See, I was used to work. And that's why I come out of service. I says, I don't want to work. I don't want to work in the store no more. And I had a little bit of, surveying in service. I said, if I could be the dumbest surveyor there is, I'll do better than working in a store, which I don't know if it's true or not. But I worked my way up from, I went to school, I got my degree, and I got to be from a surveyor to a construction engineer for a steel mill. I retired from them. I retired at 60. Then retired 21 years. And I quit drinking and smoking. And I'm thinking of giving up sex.
Tell me, if you were to leave a message for people that'll hear this tape, what would you tell them that
God,
you learned from the war, or you learned that would be helpful? Or?
I don't really know. I really can't. I don't know how to say this. I'd have to think about it, and then I'd be screwed up anyway. All I know is you can't tell people live day to day, but you got background training in your life, and you got to remember that. I grew up as a Catholic, and I always worked hard. I grew up during Depression, which is a different story. You know, if I got 1 egg for breakfast, I was lucky, and if I had a piece of bread, I was lucky, because we was 4 boys, and my parents couldn't speak very good English. They didn't know how to get around, and I went to school without a handkerchief, and my parents had to make my clothes. We grew up in a different time. I don't know if today, if we had an all-out war, if people could do it. My daughter was a baby boomer, and her children grew up in luxury. How can you tell anybody how to live under conditions like that? What if you had no water, and you had to go get water out of the creek? What if you had no electricity? You can't make your toast. You can't make nothing. You can't even make your coffee. So basically, we're back to the Stone Age if you lost everything we got. You tell kids today, they don't know anything about math. They don't know tables. They don't know religion. I don't know what to tell people today. I've got grandchildren. I say, do the best you can at school. If you don't get along with the teacher, tell your parents. Do something about it. You've got to get a good education. I don't know where you get a good education. So, first of all, the parents are the first ones that should teach their kids. And if their kids don't learn, it's the parents' fault. But we got 3rd generation of parents that don't know anything. So how you going to tell the kids anything? If kids today kill their parents, where did they learn all that from? You can't blame it on all the TV and all that. If the kid throws a scrap of paper down there and you don't tell him to pick it up and don't kick his ass, he's going to be the same way. He'll throw other things out there. He'll throw bottles. He'll kill people. And he'll say, hey, if I get away with this and get away with that, right on through. I don't know what the answer is. If you look around the world, if our country ever gets to be 1 billion, how are we going to handle it? But right now we got 7% of our people are in jail, 15% are guarding them. You can't process law, like if you cut somebody, kill somebody, it takes 20 years to do anything about it. You can't run a country that way. That's my answer. I don't know what the bottom line is.
Just a few more questions. What you think about your war activity and your experiences, what is the thing that stands out the most? We've talked about some things that have happened to you, but is there just one thing, like if you wake up and think about it, that you remember that moment or that time?
Well, I don't remember. I don't remember a moment or time, but I do say one thing. I designed my life like the captain was to me. My captain, well, I grew up with. Well, we started training with our commanding officer. He would never ask anybody to do something he couldn't do. I mean, if he walked the line, we walked the line with him. If he could walk 25 miles in 3 hours, we could do it too. And he never asked anybody to walk across a small log, across a creek, unless he did it. And me and a little Mexican were the smallest guys in our group, and we carried the guide arms. And he always picked the littlest guys because he says, if those guys can make the mile in 3 minutes or the 25 miles in 3 hours, anybody else can do it. And I stressed my life the same way. When I was in construction, and if I see something, like I was working at a steel mill, and I have to check for gas, check for explosive equipment, something that blow up. And I would never let anybody go in anywhere that I could not go myself. And I've always used that in my stress in life. And all the people I've known through the years, they said Vic was firm but honest.
It's a good thing to be said about you. Tell me what made, as you look back at the good leaders that you had in the war, what were their characteristics? What were they like?
Well, they were very, very fine people. Captain Moeller's the first one I knew about, and there was Muller and Flanagan. Flanagan came in late, so we didn't have him all the time. I think he was just come in like the last 6 months. Pop Flanagan. And we had one officer who turned out to be I call him a PRICK. And he was telling me one day he was on maneuvers, and I've got my guns lined up for a certain area, and he come up to me and he says, Gagne, you got them in the wrong direction. And, nobody's going to tell me I'm wrong. Hey, I've been doing this. I says, no way, that gun, I'm not going to change it. I said, turn it this way, somebody will get hurt. He says, oh, Court-Mark, you don't turn that son of a... I said, I ain't going to turn that son of a around. So anyway, we got that straightened out later. I got to Mulder, and Mulder says, hey, he got hold of him. He says, Gagne's been my right-hand man all these years. If he was wrong, I'd shoot that son of a bitch, but no. But that poor son of a bitch got shot his ass up on top of a hill one day because he was pushing the troops on top of this ridge, and he got shot in the ass. So I said, you lucky son of a gun. You're lucky I would have shot you in the head. No, most of the officers were good, nice people. They had Captain Starr, he was a nice guy. I think there was a Zanetti, he was nice. Muller. But Mulder was the first one that I knew that when came into service. Because when we first went in, we didn't have anything. All we had is broom handles. This is your gun now. What the hell are you going to do with that? Well, you're going to know how to do this and do that and do this. And then he said, we're going to get tanks, but we don't know how to run this. You're going to have a gun battery. And what do we do? Well, they didn't know either. So they had to get the books and so forth. And they put benches on both sides of a car. And they'd say, well, there's a number 1 man, number 2, number 3, because there's a corporal, there's a driver, there's a gunner, and there's the guys that fed the ammo. And this guy, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And in combat, we lost a lot of our gunners. Not of our gunners, but some of our people. You could operate a gun with 3 men. That meant the tank driver and the corporal, the gunner, and had a man to feed the... Now, if you didn't have all your ammo in your tank, you had to go out and get it. And that thing weighed plenty. You just can't move them over like that. Now, one funny incident that happened to one of our tank drivers, a grenade went off under his seat. His name was Pete Tranquich. The grenade went off, but, you know, steel there. He thought he lost his balls for a whole month. Testis. Is that the funniest it is?
Oh, man.
Another time in the middle of winter, see, and this was on maneuvers, and I don't know, it was Texas or someplace, colder than hell, and these guys are well, their combat, the heavy-duty suits. And this guy by the name of Emmerling, he shitted himself, and he wouldn't tell anybody. We was in this half-track, you know, with 4 guys in the back and 2 in the front, stink like hell, and we kept saying, who the hell farted? And this guy wouldn't say a word, you know. He just, that's somebody that shit in his pants and wouldn't tell anybody. But he turned out to be a real nut. One time in camp, you know, he took a tube of toothpaste, you know, and he kept squirting it all over the place. They let him go. You know, in combat. In combat, he went and grabbed a bottle of what he thought was booze on one of the windowsills and drank it, and it was bleach. So he went home with a burnt throat. So we did have some nutty people.
Well, you had a lot of people come through here, all kinds of people, all
Oh,
kinds
yeah.
of men, all kinds of experiences.
That's right. Well, you think about it, you know, just like I sat last night with them other 2 buddies of mine, and he'd tell me things that I didn't remember about. And he was a radio sergeant. And, yeah. Then, but I was really interested in what kind of work they did. You know, that's the main thing. Because I met some of these guys through the years. But, you know, it's only in the last few years we've been retired. Well, I've been retired 20 years. But when I was working, they had 2 reunions in Detroit. And at that time, I didn't know about it. And if I did, I was working. I couldn't get away. You know, I had some work that I couldn't get away.
What is the 12th Armored Division, what has it done for you as you dealt with the war experiences and stuff, the reunions and?
I don't know. It's to me, it's just a period of reflection and good camaraderie. And the reason I like to go to these places is usually towns I've never been in. Now, we had a few down in Florida. I'd go to all them. We had the Southeast chapter in St. Augustine, and then we had a few in Orlando. I went to all them. And I had the one in Ocala. But most of the ones I was in the last 7, 8 years, the ones that were the best ones was Las Vegas and Orlando. We had the biggest groups. See, we'd had anywhere from 1,200 people. Now, this one here don't look too good. I don't know. They have no signed in yet. But a lot have died, and a lot of, we contacted 3 other people that we know, and their wives have died, and they don't feel good. And, you know, like my buddy called me up. I wasn't too interested. I didn't know if I should come or not, because who wants to come to Abilene? You know, I could only think of Abilene as a one-horse town like 50-some years ago. But this is the greatest town I've ever seen. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Good, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, I really, well, I haven't seen enough of it, but what I've seen of it, it's a lot bigger than my own town I live in.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I live in a town that ain't over 2,000 people.
Okay. I have one more question for you. And then if you have anything you need to fill in for me. War is not good.
No, it's not good for any, it's no good for anybody.
Yeah. And you've experienced some things that probably you don't even want to remember or think about or talk about. Does talking to your veteran friends and stuff, has that helped you through the years, or is it something?
I think it's good to get it out of your system. For a long time, every time a phone would ring, man, I got shaky. I was shaky for 2, 3 years, because every time the phone rang, it was a fire mission. I mean, every time a phone would ring, I'd wake up. And then I wouldn't eat pork chops for a long time, because a couple of our buddies out of the tanks got burned up, and the pigs was eating them. And I wouldn't eat pork chops for years. I wouldn't even look at a pork chop. I mean, things like that. Then we went to, we liberated 2 furnace factories. There's a Buchenwald, and what's the other one? It wasn't Auschwitz. I don't know which, it starts with an A, there's Buchenwald and yellow. And I was in them. And I'm telling you, there was the smoke and the stench coming out of those ovens and the people in there and the bodies coming in with all the bones. And some of them people that were standing there, nothing but skin and bone. We give some food to one to kill them. But we got a hold of the guards that's still there and wipe them out good. You know, see stuff like that. But I felt sorry for people. I felt very sorry for a lot of people. But you got to remember also, people have to do strange things in wartime to protect themselves. A French lady that used to come to my mother's house when I was a kid, and she was in World War I. And she used to say what she had to do to preserve her food and her family. And she said, I had to give in to a lot of soldiers to protect ourselves. And if you stop to think of that, what would people do? I don't think our country could ever survive a war in this our own land. That's an awful thing to think about. You could think of morale, you think of everything. But I'll tell you, when it comes to you and you don't have a pair of shoes and it's cold out, what are you going to do for it? You might kill to get shoes. Hey, I don't know what to say. And I'm speaking as a 81-year-old man. All the experience of life.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to tell us that I've forgotten to ask you?
No. Probably come back later. I said just about everything I could think of.
There are times when I do interviews, there's this space of I have to kind of respect. You know, I want to push you as far as we can because I want to know what the real story is.
Well, that's the only way. You got to push.
Yeah. And so there are things like the liberation of camp, some of the horrors that you've seen. I have not pushed you to tell those because I kind of leave that up to y'all. Mm-hmm. Because some of those things you don't want to.
It's really bad. The part that gets me, though, they're trying to say that these things never happened. They want to rewrite the history books different. And see, I sell poppies from my post in Interlaken. I have a lot of different duties in there. One of them I sell poppies. And when I come out and pass out poppies to people, and they look at their kids and they say, give it back, we don't want it. That really hurts me. When I see something like that, I really want to kill. You know, they cost us 9.5 cents a piece, and all we ask for anything you give us. And we do good. We normally get 50 cents to $1. Sometimes we get a 5. I've gotten anywhere from $800 for a weekend up to maybe $1,300. But I got maybe 12 people out there. We split this money between the Ladies Auxiliary and our members. And we try to make an enjoyable day of this. And if they won't, you know, I'll give them to them. They tell me not to do that, but I do it. You know, if they give me money or not, I say, you should have a poppy to know what it's all about. But people that will not accept it, and people will not, they think, well, it's a political war. Well, all wars are political or religious. What else you got to say? Political. We took the land from the Indians, and we lied to them for all those years, giving them treaties that we knew we could never respect. What else can I say? I mean, the Indians, they had a beautiful land. If they had a good politician, he could have joined us. But they had land. They didn't have to subdivide it. And they lived off the fat of the land. But we had to grow. And we did. We took it from them. What do you call that? Politics? I don't know what to say. Now, the Indians are getting back to us now. They get free fishing. They got casinos all over the world. I enjoy that. I know people, what goes around comes around.
Well, I sure appreciate your time. I've learned a lot of things from you that I have not heard from anybody else, and I've done a lot of these things, over 100 and 150 of these things.
You know what to ask.
Oh, well, good, thank you. Well, you were
It's
good.
a very fine interview. When I came here, I didn't realize that it would go as good as it did, because you hit me at the right spots and it come through.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a great
I want to
time.
get one of them.
Okay.
You gonna edit them or whatever?
No, we just give it to you.
Oh my God, I gotta get one. I gotta get one.
Okay, okay.
My grandchildren wouldn't believe it.
Oh, yeah, they, yeah.
My granddaughter's husband just came out of, is a Marine for 17 years. He's in Gulf Storm and all that.
Mhm.
And he just got out. And he's got a 70% disability. And he gets, well, he's got 3 children. And he's got knee problems and so forth. But he's getting a good amount of pension. They're sending him, he could go to any college he wants for 4 years with a scholarship. And they're going to give him all the books and the whole works. I saw him, I talked to him on my birthday. And he's happy. But, he came out of school and went into service. He don't know nothing. And he never did learn any in there outside of getting along with people. So it's going to be difficult for him to go and get a job. Now, they used to say a veteran has the advantage. Well, they knocked that out. They're trying to get it back again. But, they forget soldiers.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a damn shame. What can I say?
Thank you.
You want this back?